Human speech is like a cracked kettle on which we tap crude rhythms for bears to dance to. While we long to make music that will melt the stars. Gustave Flaubert. In this quote from his novel Madame Bovary, it can be argued that Gustave Flaubert lays out the novel's entire central thesis. Initially, it might seem that Flaubert despises main character Emma Bovary. The novel depicts her as a vain, materialistic, and frivolous woman who is so obsessed with imitating the romantic novels that she adores that she neglects her family, engages in adulterous affairs with Leon Dupuy and Rodolphe Boulanger, and ultimately commits suicide after her borrowings from Monsieur Leroux drive her and her family into bankruptcy. Indeed, Flaubert wrote in a letter that Madame Bovary will be the first time that a book makes fun of its leading lady and its leading man. However, if the passage cited above is analyzed in the context of the entire novel, if the quote used at the beginning of this essay is analyzed in the context of the entire novel, it can be argued that Flaubert views Emma as a sympathetic figure trying to find her own music in a world that silences her voice. This essay shall explore the extent to which Emma can be seen as a tragic and repressed woman with an artistic soul through a close reading of Flaubert's text. The essay shall analyze will analyze how Flaubert portrays her internal monologue and how she perceives the world around her, and how Emma is contrasted in order to accomplish this task. Towards the end of the novel, as Emma lies dying after having poisoned herself, Flaubert describes how Emma heard only the intermittent sobbing of Charles Bovary, like the fading echo of an ever more distant symphony. This metaphor ties back to what the novel has already established about Emma. Oh god. Harmless. This metaphor ties back into what the novel has already established about Emma. An idealistic romantic who started at least one of her affairs in the aftermath of attending a romantic opera. However, it can be argued that there is more to the specific image than just the aesthetic element. A symphony is a piece of music produced by a multitude of different instruments coming together in order to create a common musical composition, much like how Emma wishes that all of the elements in her life could come together to produce something beautiful and magnificent. However, because Emma is a woman living in a highly patriarchal and sexually oppressive time and place, she's not able to find this beauty in the world that surrounds her. That is a major reason why she turns to romantic novels and operas. In those stories, Emma finds the beauty and perfection that she understands to be lacking in her everyday life. The main reason why Emma feels so dissatisfied with the world in which she lives is because she is smart enough to understand that it is lacking and unfair in many ways. Crucially, Flaubert actually seems to agree with his protagonist on this subject. The most notable example in the book of how Flaubert subtly agrees with Emma's low opinions of the people around her is in how he depicts her husband, Charles. Although Emma initially loves Charles, she gradually begins to realize that Charles' conversation was as flat as any pavement, and everybody's ideas plodded along it, inspiring no emotion, no laughter, no reverie. Thus, it is clear that the main way in which Charles Bovary is fundamentally a boring person is that he is unimaginative. Not only does he not know many of the things that Emma feels a man should know because of the romantic novels she's read, but the as flat as any pavement line in the text implies another thing about Charles. It implies that rather than thinking for himself in any meaningful way, Charles simply agrees with the other people around him and never thinks for himself. This is in firm contrast to Emma herself. While Flaubert does not go into the specific details of Emma's education, it is mentioned in Chapter 6 of Book 1 that Emma, despite being educated by nuns in a convent, rebelled against the mysteries of the faith and that her temperament was ill-suited to discipline. From this quote, it is clear that Emma refuses to be constrained by what other people say is good and proper for a woman, and indeed feels horribly oppressed by the expected gender roles of her class and time and place. Earlier in the same chapter, Flaubert discusses how Emma felt a passionate admiration for women who were famous or ill-starred. From this interest in literature and history, it is clear that Emma is actually very intelligent and educated, especially compared, as mentioned before, to her foolish husband. She also prizes and respects individuality over conformity. Therefore, it is possible to argue that Charles' passivity and obsession with completely assimilating into the middle class of Yonville offends Emma on a deeper level than just trapping her into a dull and conformist lifestyle. To Emma, Charles represents the crushing suffocation of the everyday world from which she has always wanted to escape. It is very telling that amongst the many things Emma dislikes one of the many things Emma dislikes about Charles is that he had never felt tempted to go to the theater to see the actors from Paris. While Charles is not an evil or abusive person, he seems to genuinely love it when Emma draws sketches or plays the piano. The fundamental differences in character between him and Emma are the major hindrance to their relationship, and the most significant reason why Charles is not capable of providing the things that Emma needs to be emotionally fulfilled. Here was or much. Thus, when Emma begins to have affairs with other men, most notably Leon Dupuis and Rodolphe Boulanger, the quality that she most seeks out in them is whether they have this same artistic soul that she does. For example, the first thing that the book mentions about Leon Dupuis is that he is very bored with his life in Yonville. This sets up an explicit parallel with Emma, with both characters feeling incredibly dissatisfied with the lives that they currently have. Furthermore, one of the first conversations that they have on their first meeting is about landscapes over which the mind takes wing more freely, whose contemplation uplifts thought of the infinite, of the ideal. Leon also mentions in this section that he loves music. And Emma has already been established as being skilled at playing the piano. So for a while, Emma feels like she has found the true kindred spirit that Charles has failed to be for her. Similarly, Emma falls in love with Rodolphe Boulanger because he wears the kind of outfit in which the common man sees evidence of an eccentric lifestyle and invariably a certain disdain of social conventions. This leads Emma to see Rodolphe as someone like herself who will be an ideal lover. A feeling that is reinforced when he tells Emma, Yet how often have I wondered on seeing a cemetery in the moonlight, whether I wouldn't be better off lying beside those who slumber there, in reference to the dead bodies who are buried in the cemetery. What is most interesting about this conversation is that this is the one part of Emma and Rodolphe's first conversation. Part of Emma and Rodolphe's first conversation that Flaubert chooses to show the reader. The most likely reason why Flaubert chose to do this is because it highlights that the thing Emma finds most appealing in both Leon and Rodolphe is the dissatisfaction that they both feel with their lives. They both claim to feel, because Rodolphe is a lying piece of shit. Fuck you, Rodolphe. While this is not surprising to anyone who has read this novel, there is a passage where Emma wishes that she could have a son, and is disappointed when her child turns out to be a girl. Emma's rationale for writing a boy over the girl is that a man, at least, is free to explore all passions and all countries. But a woman is constantly thwarted, at once passive and compliant. She has to contend with both the weakness of her body and the subjection imposed by the law. This quote demonstrates to the reader that Emma hates and despises the constrictions placed on her by patriarchal society. Therefore, it is very clear that the main reason why she is so addicted to reading romance novels is because they are a form of escape for her. In those books, the female protagonist managed to get to leave behind the confines of their ordinary lives by a strong, powerful men who adore them and treat them as if they are the most beautiful people in the world. This understanding changes how the reader perceives Emma's dissatisfaction with the life she has with Charles and Yonville. Emma isn't just dissatisfied because she isn't rich or successful, but because she recognizes on a deep and fundamental level how shackled she is to Charles' mediocrity because of the way the society in which she lives is structured. Another thing that does not get discussed frequently about this novel, however, is that Emma has her own creative inclinations alongside the fact that she enjoys reading romantic novels and watching plays and operas. In Chapter 7 of Book 1, it is mentioned that Emma used to draw sometimes, and plays the piano as well. Being a prose novel, Madame Bovary is not able to show the reader Emma's drawings or allow them to hear how she plays the piano. However, it does mention that Emma struck each of her piano compositions with a confident touch, and that Charles takes enough pride in his wife's pencil sketches to have two of them framed in wide frame aims and hung on the wall from long green cords. What this indicates is that Emma has a strong creative impulse that could have led her to become an artist and create her own novels and or sketches. However, she never actually develops her own talents in any substantial way, instead seeking lovers who will fulfill these desires and passions for her. Ultimately, this might be the greatest mistake that Emma makes in this story. Female novelists and poets were not completely unknown at the time in which this novel is set. Therefore, Emma could easily have become a novelist, and the books that she wrote might even have become popular and beloved. Instead, however, Emma quests foolishly from a man who will take her into that ideal life, largely because the society in which she has been raised has taught her that she only needs to wait for her true love because he will solve all of her problems for her. Thus, it can be argued that if Emma had cultivated her own talents as an artist, instead of obsessing over having her life imitate her favorite novels exactly, then she might have been able to find the happiness and fulfillment that her marriage to Charles denied her. In conclusion, the novel of Madame Bovary clearly portrays its heroine Emma as an intelligent and imaginative woman. She has a strong knowledge of history and relates herself to those famous historical women. She is also clearly much more creative than her husband Charles, and this contributes to her frustrations with him. However, Emma mistakenly believes that if she simply finds the right man with whom to have an affair and acquires material possessions, then she will find the happiness that her marriage has denied her to Charles. However, both Rodolphe and Léon prove unable to provide Emma with what she needs. And this ultimately helps lead Emma to committing suicide at the end of it. However, the true ultimate tragedy of this novel is that there is some evidence in the text that Emma had her own latent talents as a writer and artist. Since there are already examples of women being successful as writers and artists by the time in which Madame Bovary is set, it is perfectly possible that Emma could have become a successful romance novelist if she chose to apply herself to that craft. Ultimately, Emma Bovary's true failing is not an excessive attachment to material possessions, but the fact that she chose and tried to try and rely on a male lover and romantic novel tropes to define her life, rather than defining it for her, rather than defining it for herself. She is undone not by being a foolish and romantic dreamer, but rather by a kind of internalized misogyny that causes her to see herself as in need of a male lover rather than being in control of her own life.